Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're boarding passengers seated in zones E and F at this time. Your zone number...
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Rhea. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome back Lee Harris from ATPI Travel. How are you, Lee?
I am very well, actually. Yep, good for a Monday, sunshine, and not so good about the football last night, but we'll just gloss over that, I think. But yeah, no good. Ready for a new show.
I have to say, I was woken up in the middle of the night by exuberant screaming, shouting, air horns, honking horns from cars, singing in the most atrocious voices. And I realized, because at that point, I knew that England was involved in whatever football game it was that was so important, because, of course, English fans are like really vocal. And it was all over LinkedIn. And it was only at that point that I realized it must have been against Spain, and Spain must have won. And then I briefly considered pouring ice cold water out of my balcony door to those below to shut them up, because I needed some sleep. But that was the extent of my knowledge of anything.
Do you know what? I wish I was as blissfully unaware.
You actually went out and watched it, didn't you?
I did. Yes, yeah. I did. And it was okay up to about 85 minutes. And then the last 5 was not quite so good.
Yes, and I can imagine the chaos in England last night. Must have been a lot of unhappy Brits, but
yeah,
and they don't behave very well when they're unhappy.
No, they're not the best behaved. No, we can safely say no. It doesn't. Honestly, I haven't heard of any. I've not looked at the news this morning yet, so I don't know if anybody kicked off. But I've not heard of anything. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they were all well behaved.
Yeah, it's a shame they couldn't have as much passion for, I don't know, world peace, but. Moving on. There is Supreme Court ruling on delays for British Airways.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So a ruling by the UK Supreme Court against flag carrier British Airways means passengers are now entitled to compensation if their flight is delayed or cancelled due to airline staff sickness. The legal precedent will likely lead to tens of thousands of passengers receiving mandatory compensation each year in a win for passengers' rights. When 2 British Airways passengers were delayed by more than 2 hours during their BA City Flyer flight from Milan to London back in 2018, they believed they were entitled to compensation as per the EU 261 regulations. However, they were informed by the airline that because a pilot had fallen ill and couldn't show up to work, it constituted extraordinary circumstances, and 2 British courts initially backed the airline's position. However, the UK Court of Appeals reversed the decision and ruled in favour of the travellers, so British Airways took their appeal to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. And on Wednesday, 5 justices of the Supreme Court unanimously dismissed the appeal in a ruling that will likely impact thousands of yearly compensation claims.
And that would just be the beginning, because if that's the ruling for British Airways, I can guarantee you that's going to have a trickle effect throughout the industry.
Absolutely. Yep, it will do.
Good. Poor CEOs. I feel so bad for them. And Qantas has some news.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Australian crew are another step closer to Europe now that Qantas has launched its new Nonstop service from Perth to Paris, arriving in France for the first time in 20 years. The Boeing 787 service cuts around 3 hours off the current fastest travel time between Perth and Paris and is the longest non-stop flight to France from anywhere in the world. And while the Qantas non-stop flights from Perth to Paris, London and Rome are standalone routes in their own right, for the majority of Australians who live on the East Coast, they are a warm-up for Project Sunrise services. Those flights will operate non-stop from Sydney and Melbourne to London and New York, and for Australians within easy reach of global destinations, ending the need for a stopover in Perth, Singapore or Auckland. Now, the new Perth to Paris route will operate 4 times weekly over the peak northern summer season, and from mid-August, it will revert to 3 times weekly, and it will add 75,000 seats between Australia and Europe annually.
And it wouldn't be a weekly travel segment without a little bit of strike action.
Yeah, but it's good news this time. Security staff at Glasgow and Aberdeen airports have voted to accept a new pay deal to lift the threat of industrial action, which was likely to throw the airports into chaos next month. The Unite Union confirmed that around 300 members overwhelmingly accepted an improved pay offer worth up to 12.8%. Unite's lead industrial officer for aviation in Scotland said, "We are pleased that the company came to its senses and got back round a table to make an improved offer which was acceptable to our members. the possibility of strike action at the airports is now over.
I'm surprised we haven't heard from France lately with the Olympics coming up. I was waiting every day to see an announcement that there's going to be some strike action.
I'm sure they'll leave it as late as possible to maximize as much damage as they possibly can.
Knocking on wood, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. They usually time it right around August. Not only is that their yearly sort of strike action plan, but on top of that, you've got the Olympics heading there. So We'll see. And Ireland has implemented some visa requirements for South Africans. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's important news actually for South African crew. So as from July the 10th, nationals from South Africa now need to obtain a visa first before travelling to Ireland, the Irish Department of Justice has announced. South Africans will also be subject to a transit visa when intending to transit through Ireland to another destination. That's as per the Schengen News reporting. Now, confirming the new changes, the Minister for Justice of Ireland, Helen McEntee, said that they carefully considered decision will bring Ireland into closer alignment with the Schengen zone in respect of both these countries, and also in line with the United Kingdom in respect of their rules for travellers from South Africa.
South African travelers tend to have a really hard time of it, don't they? It's like one of those countries that is really suspiciously regarded.
Yeah, it is, yes. If you've got a South African passport, it is very difficult. You need to get visas for a lot of places.
Why is that?
I'm sure there's probably some sort of historical reason as to why, but I suppose it's the same with a lot of countries, isn't it? India being another way you need a lot of visas. The Philippines, they tend to be hit hardest with regards to visa regulations. But in all honesty, I've never really deep dived into it to find out, but it's probably a good question to look up.
There you go. There's the question you have to answer for next week, Lee.
That's my homework for this week, is it?
Yes, it is. Find out why South Africans have such a hard time traveling anywhere in the world.
Guessing it might be because of forged passports. There may be a higher amount, but I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, so I will definitely look it up and we can say next week.
I will look forward to it because now I'm interested. I just when we were talking about it before we got on air, every time I turn around, it seems like there's something being said about South Africa and travel and visas to work. And they seem to have really, and considering in yachting, we have quite a large proportion of South Africans working in yachting as crew. And the hoops that they have to jump through in order to work legally overseas is crazy.
Absolutely. You talk about, you have the med season for yacht and you also have the US or the Caribbean season. And both times you either need to they'll have to get a Schengen visa if they're coming for the med season, and they have to get B1, B2 if they're going to be going for the US and the Caribbean, because of the routes that they take, or the routes that they can only take, will mean having to go via the US anyway. So it's hard. It is hard for them, a lot harder than what it is for other nationals.
And it seems like they have to do like triple backflips and then 12 forward flips and jumping jacks to continue on. Like it just doesn't end. The amount of paperwork and bureaucracies that they have to traverse in order to get over here. Yeah. Sorry, South Africa. I'm going to find out so that I know why the world is wanting to keep you in South Africa.
We will.
Lee, I want to say thank you ever so much once again for your insights. And of course, if you are crew and you have a crew question, much like my crew question, or even if it's another question that isn't anything like my crew question,
just any question. As long as it's travel related, then we're good. Don't start asking me questions about the theory of relativity and stuff, because I'll be lost. I'm not going to lie.
I'm going to have to write in. I'm going to have to create an email address just to send you like really retarded questions and see if you can answer them. But the first time one of those came through, you'd be like, oh, that's Rhea. Forget it.
Yeah, I'll know straight away.
All right. I hope you have a great weekly, and I'm very sorry about England's loss, but it is Spain's gain, and they are enjoying it today, I'm sure.
Indeed, and we're used to it, so it's no big deal, is it? It's like water off a duck's back now.
You've been watching another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Rhea. I have been your host. We'll see you again next time.